Asbestos, it's a killer, we know that, and yet we keep finding it on our way to our building sites. So who's dropping the bundle here?
You can import lots of weird stuff into Australia, like samurai swords and animal horns. If you have a permit, you can even import hazardous waste.
Well,
But asbestos has been banned for more than a decade, which is why we should be worried that it's popped up at over 50 sites across the country, including the Perth Children's Hospital.
I think if Australians appreciated how much asbestos was being imported into the country, they'd be absolutely horrified.
This week it's emerged that a batch of over 8,000 imported concrete sheets is being investigated after they were found to contain asbestos. The sheets were imported from China by Australian portable camps, who supply accommodation to building projects all over the country. They say they had no idea that the sheets were tainted.
The recent cases highlighted the cracks in our system, and those cracks must be stopped.
The system clearly isn't working. But don't worry, there was a Senate inquiry into non-conforming building products last year. Unfortunately, their report was postponed 5 times, and then the Senate was dissolved. Oops.
The government needs to be clear to the Australian Border Force that this is a priority, as important as illegal weapons or as important as prohibited drugs.
So if cheap, dodgy and deadly building materials are flooding the market, what the hell are we doing to stop it?
Senator Nick Xenophon was involved in that Senate inquiry. He joins us now. Senator, I gather you're pretty mad about this, but what would you like to see done?
Well, first thing we need to do is to reinstate the Senate inquiry, because with the double dissolution election it gets dissolved, so we need to bring that back on as a matter of urgency. We need to find out why this is still happening, whether Border Force has been doing their job, and we need to increase the penalties, because right now they're pathetic.
Sorry,
you get a fine.
Penalties on whom?
Oh, the penalties for importing asbestos products. I mean, at the moment, there's a maximum fine of $170,000. Given that being exposed to asbestos can, in effect, be a death sentence for some people, then I think a jail sentence is appropriate in circumstances where someone knowingly or recklessly imports products with asbestos in it.
Well, that's the thing. Do you think they are knowingly doing it, or is it just a case of being, uninformed?
Well, look, a number of people are being conned in that there are false certificates, but the problem is, in relation to China, for instance, that the specification, the standard for being asbestos-free is if you have less than 5% asbestos by weight of the product.
Zena, we've also heard, though, that this falsifying of documents can be a huge problem. How do we police that if the falsification is happening overseas with the exporters?
Well, it's a big call, but if we know that falsification is occurring in another country, then we need to insist on all those products coming from that country that could contain asbestos to be checked for asbestos.
I don't know exactly how Border Force is going to check every single sheet that comes in from China, which leads us to your previous suggestion about builders taking responsibility. If they're not being reckless about it, they're relying on data sheets, they're not knowingly importing this stuff, I don't see how you can really up the penalties on them and make it their problem.
Well, the penalties need to be graded based on levels of recklessness and knowledge and whether you've assessed the risks appropriately. I mean, the problem is this...
Sorry, can I put you up though? What does that mean? Like, if I get a data sheet, you're saying I shouldn't be allowed to rely on that, so I then have to, go off to a lab somewhere and try to get that tested or something? Like, how much are we going to put on them?
Yeah, it depends though, because if we know that there's widespread falsifications in a certain country, then that should alert any importer to be wary of it. And the other issue is simply this: if you want to be sure of having an asbestos-free cement fibre product, then buy Australian, where asbestos has been banned from the production of cement fibre products for many years now.
Nick Xenophon, thank you for your time.